That night, my son-in-law said a sentence I'll never forget. "Dad, this Saturday, my parents are moving in with you. End of discussion." He didn't ask. He ordered. At the dinner table in the very house I built with oil-stained hands, he leaned back, poured himself wine, and spoke as if I were just the caretaker of his property. My daughter bowed her head, too afraid to meet my eyes. I stayed silent, not because I was scared, but because I knew when a man dares to cross the line inside my home, he's already stepped into the last lesson of his life. If you've ever been belittled by your own family, had your work, your house, or your faith stolen from you, leave a single in the comments, so I know you understand that feeling. And if you still believe gratitude is the only thing that keeps a family from collapsing, hit subscribe, because every day I'll tell you another true story, where gratitude is restored and the silence of the kind becomes the loudest verdict of all. I washed my hands 3 times, yet I could still smell the oil trapped beneath my nails. That smell has followed me my entire life, the same smell city people call dirty, but I call dinner. Tonight I cooked steak for the first time since selling my garage. I thought it would be a quiet meal, but peace only exists in the seconds before something breaks. A car stopped at the gate. Through the window I saw Caleb's brand new BMW. He stepped out, white shirt, polished shoes, expensive watch gleaming on his wrist. I looked at those smooth hands and wondered if they'd ever been truly washed, or if every stain in his life had been cleaned by someone else. My daughter Vanessa walked beside him. Her face was soft like her mother's, but her eyes were different, tight, cold, gleaming like freshly sharpened steel. "Your new house is beautiful, Dad," Vanessa said, her tone half compliment, half inspection. "So big for one person." Caleb strolled around the living room, his gaze measuring every corner. "This place would look great with a white sofa set," he said, glancing toward the garage. "And that garage, so much space. I was thinking," I cut in with a faint smile, "garages are for cars, not people. I need privacy." He turned, smiling thinly, his eyes like ice. "You live alone. What do you need privacy from?" The sentence hit like a wrench dropped on concrete. No shouting, no emphasis, just wait. Caleb shrugged, his tone still calm, but each word tightening like a bolt in my throat. "My parents in Dallas have to move. The landlord raised the rent. They're coming up to Austin. They'll be moving in with you. Saturday. We'll bring them. End of discussion." I set my knife down. The sound of metal on porcelain cracked the silence, sharp and cold. Vanessa whispered, "Dad, it's just temporary. Caleb's mom isn't well. They don't want to live far from family." I looked at her. In her eyes flickered something between guilt and pity, the look of someone who knows it's wrong but still tries to make it sound reasonable. I answered slowly, "This house has 3 bedrooms. One's mine, one's storage. One belonged to your mother. There's no room." Caleb chuckled, swirling his wine, his voice smooth, measured like a man reading a contract. "Then clear one out. You know, time moves on. Everyone has to share eventually." I met his gaze. "Sharing isn't the same as taking." Vanessa cut in quickly, her voice soft, fragile, trying to keep the air from freezing. "Dad, don't take it the wrong way. He's just trying to help." I asked quietly, "Help who?" She said nothing. Caleb set his glass down, the wine rippling, his voice low but slicing through the air. "Family should help family, right? That's what good people do." His tone was as smooth as a blade sliding through rubber. No sound, but something tore. I stayed silent. In my head, I could hear old metal clanging, the sound a mechanic knows before an engine fails. Vanessa looked from him to me, her smile trembling. "Dad, it's just for a while. I'll bring them Saturday and you'll see." Caleb cut her off, his voice flat, cold, stripped of pretense. "I'm not asking, Dad. I'm telling." The room lost its air. I smiled faintly and said, "Sure, I'll understand." The space chilled. The smells of cooking smoke and perfume tangled with the scent of old steel on my hands. A bitter mix, like the smell of something about to burn. When dinner ended, Caleb stood, patted my shoulder, the way a man taps metal to test if it's hollow. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll handle everything. It's just temporary." Then he smirked, voice light but mocking. "Good. Smart choice. You'll see. It won't be so bad." The words scraped against my ear like metal on concrete. I said nothing, just stared at the half-eaten steak and the dark red wine spreading on the tablecloth, like an oil stain. After they left, the house sank into silence. Only the wall clock ticked, steady and heavy, like measuring the pressure inside my chest. I washed the dishes, my hands trembling slightly. The warm water ran over my skin, but my palms stayed cold. My phone buzzed, a message from Vanessa. "Dad, they'll come Saturday, okay? Just 2 rooms, you won't even notice." I read it twice. Outside, the sky had turned the color of steel. Wind slipped through the garage door, rattling the hanging keys, each one clinking softly like metal, laughing. I walked into the garage. The room was clean, orderly, and smelling of iron and axle grease. My heart slowed. On the workbench, my old wrench lay silent and cold. I picked it up, turned it once in my hand. The click of metal echoed clearly and hard. I murmured, steady and low, "Every engine has a breaking point. So does a man." And tonight, I think I just heard the first crack. Tuesday morning, Austin lay under a blanket of heavy gray clouds, thick and suffocating. I was making coffee when the doorbell cut through the silence. Slow chimes like the ticking of a second hand. Inside me, the old airplane engine started rumbling again, fighting to live one more day. At the door was Caleb, alone. His sleeves were rolled up, his wrists smooth and bare, his smile confident enough to be unsettling. Vanessa was gone, no more soft cushion between him and me. He stepped in like he already owned the place, as if he'd hung his nameplate on the wall. "Morning, Dad. I'm just stopping by real quick," he said, voice smooth as fresh motor oil. He didn't wait outside. He'd already crossed the line, quietly claiming territory. Then he inhaled like a foreman about to issue orders. "We already told them. They've started packing. Saturday's the move." The words dropped in my house like a tightening bolt. I set the coffee cup down and felt the bottom go cold. "What?" I asked, each syllable sharp as metal slamming shut. He smirked, certain. "My parents. They're excited. I told them to get ready." I repeated slowly, roughly, and deliberately, "You told them?" He shrugged as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "You're overreacting. It's just for a few months. The house is big. You'll get used to it." I didn't smile. I said no. I want peace. His grin froze, color draining from his face like a locked gear. Caleb pulled out his phone, swiped, and spoke loud enough for me to hear. "Hey, babe, I talked to him. It's all good." He looked up, still smiling. "Vanessa will call you. She's worried about you." I glanced at the wall clock. The second hand trembled. The air itself felt like it was measuring pressure. 2 minutes later, my phone rang. Vanessa lit the screen. I put it on speaker. "Dad," her voice came soft, sweet, the kind of sweetness used to patch guilt. "I heard Caleb already told you. Don't worry, they're so excited to meet you. They're really nice, I promise." My tone hardened. "Vanessa, I said no one is moving in here. No one." Her voice dropped, dressed in diplomacy. "Dad, you're overreacting. I just want everyone to get along. Caleb thinks you're just upset because he asked suddenly. It's temporary." That voice, my daughter's, sounded like worn brake lines. I didn't budge. "It's not about temporary or permanent. It's about someone giving orders in my house." Silence. Then faintly, "I understand." The call ended. I looked back at Caleb. His smile thinned like a blade. "I know you love Vanessa, Dad, so help me out this once. Family should help family." I stepped closer, letting the daylight hit his face. every angle sharpened for advantage. Helping is when someone asks. Forcing is something else, I said. The air felt flammable. I got nothing done that day. Every sound of a passing truck made me picture a moving van pulling up to my gate, strangers stepping inside my house like they already belonged. The thought made my throat tighten. I went to the garage, my heart for 40 years. The smell of oil, grease, and steel greeted me like an old friend. I opened my worn ledger, my record of every time I'd helped them. One line, $14,000, Caleb's car debt. I signed that check without hesitation. Another, $60,000, down payment for their first apartment in Dallas. I thought I was helping. Looking back, every time I helped was just handing them another lever. I remembered that night Vanessa cried, "They're repossessing the car, Dad." I wired the money before sunrise. She said, "I owe you one." One time, it turned into countless. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the old pressure gauge I'd salvaged when I sold the shop. The needle was brushing red. I gave a crooked laugh. Figures. This engine's about to blow too. That afternoon, I called Helen Bishop, a friend and civil attorney who'd handled the sale of my garage. Her voice was raspy, steady, carrying the calm of someone who's seen too many human messes. "Calvin? Haven't heard from you in a while. What's going on?" I said. "I think someone's about to take my house." She chuckled softly, then grew serious. "Let me ask you straight. Whose name's on the deed?" "Mine. Title just transferred last month." Silence for a few seconds. Then her words came slow, heavy, like oil spilling onto fire. "If they cross that gate and stay for 30 days, the law considers them residents. You won't be able to kick them out easily. At that point, you'll need a sheriff." I froze. The sentence landed like a small verdict. "What do you mean?" I asked, like a man checking a faulty engine. "I mean," she continued, voice low, "once they step through that gate, you'll need a court order to get them out. Believe me, I've seen seniors stuck for a year just because someone moved in first. You're not in a garage anymore, Calvin. In a shop, a loose bolt can be tightened. In real life, you lose once you loosen your guard. Let it slip once, and the house is gone." I looked out at the black iron gate gleaming under the afternoon sun, silent, still. Inside my head, the ticking of the gauge crawled toward red. A chill spread down my neck. I hung up and sat alone in the living room. Late sunlight cut through the blinds, glinting off the gauge face. The needle had passed the red mark. My heart felt like a piston hitting dead center. I stood, went to my desk, opened the drawer, and pulled out an old notebook. My hand shook, but the words I wrote were bold and steady. Asset protection. Plan, May 3rd. No one crosses the gate. No one. Outside, the wind stirred. The garage door rattled. The same sound I used to hear seconds before an engine exploded. I set the notebook down, more certain than ever. This wasn't about loud revenge. It was about building a legal fence so the trespassers would learn this ground wasn't theirs to claim. The pressure gauge had gone red. The countdown had begun. I knew what came next, each step, each document, each witness, to turn this risk into a defense system. But first, one rule had to hold. No one crosses that gate. No one. That afternoon, Austin lay beneath a thin veil of gray clouds. Dry wind swept through the backyard, carrying the scent of iron and old oil. I had just finished writing the words in my notebook. No one crosses the gate. Then the phone rang. Helen Bishop. Her voice was the same, slow, raspy, laced with the caution of someone who's watched small disputes destroy whole families. "Calvin," she said, "I think you need to do one more thing. File a no trespass notice." I straightened, pen ready. "What's that?" "It's a document filed with the local police. List your name and address. It gives law enforcement the authority to intervene immediately. No warrant needed. It's called a civil standby. If someone tries to enter your property without consent, you call 911. The officers come, witness, and order them off the premises. As long as their names are on your list, they can be removed on site. Can I file it before they show up? I asked. Helen gave a small, knowing laugh. You'd better. Don't wait for them to pitch a tent in your yard. Minutes later, her email arrived. I opened the attachment and read line by line. Notice of prohibition of entry. Under Section 30.05, Texas Penal Code. Each word was cold as a rivet. I filled in my name, Calvin Reeves, under property owner, then added a note. Applies to any person attempting to enter property at 42117 Willow Creek Drive, without consent of owner. When I printed it, I pressed my old garage stamp onto the page, a single clean thud that sounded like a hammer of judgment. The next morning, I drove to the Riverside Police substation. The desk officer, middle-aged, salt and pepper hair, reviewed the form, then signed off. Now, if anyone walks in uninvited, just call. We'll be there within 10 minutes. I nodded. Thank you. I'm just trying to avoid trouble. He smiled, firm but kind. No one has the right to turn another man's home into their refuge. Even family. You did the right thing. Outside, sunlight broke through the clouds. For the first time in days, my shoulders felt lighter. That afternoon, I called Road Eye Security, a company I'd seen advertised on a coffee shop flyer. The young tech rep was quick and polite. We've got a 4-camera package, full perimeter, uploads automatically to cloud storage. Would you like motion alerts too, Mr. Reeves? No audio, I said. Just visuals. I prefer silence. 3 hours later, the van arrived. 2 technicians, a young man and a woman, carried boxes of equipment. I pointed around the property. One by the gate, one on the porch, one for the backyard, last one in the garage. They nodded. The drill began its steady whine, sharp, clean, mechanical, like the rhythm I'd worked to my whole life. When they left, I stood in the garage, facing the small monitor, mounted to the wall. 4 frames split the screen. Gate, yard, hallway, garage, all still. Only the soundless sway of air and the faint rattle of a loose screw. On the workbench, I wiped down my old tools. 12 wrenches, 6 screwdrivers, a worn-out adjustable spanner, and a rubber mallet I'd always called the judge. I placed each back in its slot. The smell of heated oil hung in the air. I murmured, Justice works like mechanics. It needs the right tools. And when the tools fit, the explosion sounds right. I sat down and added a new line to my notebook. Justice requires instruments, not volume. Night. Dinner was late. Black coffee and cold bread. The house was silent. The faint sound of a neighbor's TV drifting through the walls like from another world. My phone buzzed. A text. Vanessa. See you Saturday. 5 words and a smiley face, like a slap. I read it over and over. That emoji wasn't warmth. It was confirmation. Saturday was no longer a proposal. It was a decree. I deleted the message. No reply. I went to the garage. The neon lights washed the steel in pale white. Everything was ready. The tools gleamed. The notes were open. The security feed flickered quietly. I took a cloth and polished the wrench one last time. In that reflection, I saw my own face, aged, lined, but solid as an engine block. Then the headlights swept across the front windows. I froze. The hum of an SUV engine stopped at the driveway. Through the curtain slit, I saw beams of white light slicing across the fence. A shadow moved toward the gate. A faint click echoed, the metallic turn of an old lock. I knew that sound instantly. The old key. Caleb's hand. I didn't turn on the light. I stayed in the dark, listening. The pressure gauge needle trembled, beating in time with my pulse. Go on, I whispered. Try it. You'll learn soon enough. This door opens by law now, not by key. Saturday, the sky over Austin was clear as polished steel. The air was so still I could hear the garage clock ticking. Tick, tick, like the heartbeat of a machine waiting to come alive. I was up by 6. Light breakfast, black coffee, no sugar. I put on my blue work shirt, old khaki pants, and the leather boots I'd worn for 20 years in the shop, not to look tough, but to remind myself who I was, the man who tightened every bolt to the millimeter. 9 o'clock. I checked all 4 road eye cameras. The images were crisp: front gate, porch, backyard, garage. The sign, "Private Property, No Trespassing," hung bright on the iron gate, and beneath it, a laminated copy of Helen's document. No trespass notice, signed and filed. At 1:20 p.m., an engine's hum carried from the distance. I grabbed my phone and opened the security app. On screen, a glossy black SUV followed by a white U-Move rental truck, rolling closer. I took a deep breath. Out front, 2 police officers were already in position for the scheduled civil standby. They stood calmly by the entrance. Deputy Miller, solid build, dark sunglasses, voice steady, and Officer Diaz, younger, holding a clipboard. Miller turned to me. "Mr. Reeves, once you say they're not allowed, we step in." I nodded. "Thank you. I want this quiet." The engines grew louder, then stopped before the gate. Sunlight glared off the windshield, so bright I couldn't see faces, only shapes. Doors opened. Caleb Caldwell stepped out first. New jacket, black shades. That same grin, like this was a ceremony, not a trespass. Behind him, Vanessa, dark circles under her eyes, clutching her purse. From the truck, his parents, Harold and Eileen Caldwell, climbed down slowly, expectant, as if moments away from being handed heaven's keys. They froze when they saw the locked gate and the gleaming warning sign. Caleb frowned. "Open the gate, old man," he shouted. His voice cracked against the iron like a hammer against a hood. I didn't answer. Deputy Miller stepped forward, calm and even. "Sir, I need you to relax. Mr. Reeves has filed a no trespass notice. This is a lawful order." He pulled the paper from his pocket and held it through the bars. Caleb snatched it, glanced, then scoffed. "This is a joke? You actually called the cops on your own house?" I met his gaze, voice low and steady. "They're not here for my house, Caleb. They're here to keep it mine." Vanessa stepped closer, eyes wet. "Dad, please don't do this. They just need a place for a while. We don't want to fight." Eileen snapped, her voice shrill, scraping like a slipping belt. "You heartless old man. We're family. You owe us." I looked at her calmly. "Ma'am, I spent my life building engines, and I know they only break when someone pushes them past their limit." Then I turned to Caleb, my eyes straight as a steel ruler. "This gate is that limit." The air tightened. Caleb threw the paper to the ground, shouting, "We'll sue! You'll regret this!" Miller didn't flinch. "Sir, leave now. This is a lawful order. You're trespassing." Vanessa cried, turning to her husband. "Stop it, Caleb. Please." He didn't listen. He looked back at his parents and jerked his head toward the truck. "Let's go." Car doors slammed. Engines roared. The convoy reversed, turned, and rolled down the road, leaving a faint trail of dust in the sun. I stood still. The officers nodded goodbye and drove off. At the gate, the no trespass paper fluttered in the wind, catching on the base of the metal sign, like a seal closing a case. I took a long breath. For the first time in months, my chest felt light. But 10 minutes later, the phone rang. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Morrison. 3 houses down, her voice a mix of surprise and amusement. "Calvin, did you know? Someone posted a video of the whole thing on our neighborhood Facebook group. The title says, 'Man defends his home from freeloaders.' You're famous." I said nothing. Outside, the afternoon sun hit the gate, and my reflection stared back, distorted but firm. I hung up and sat in the chair by the garage, staring at the pressure gauge on the wall. The needle still sat in the red. I muttered under my breath, voice dry as old oil. "Looks like this engine's just starting to heat up." 3 days after the gate incident, Austin baked under sunlight sharp as forged steel, and suddenly the name Calvin Reeves was everywhere. I didn't realize it until Mrs. Morrison, my neighbor on the left, knocked on the door, phone in hand, eyes bright like she'd hit the jackpot. "Calvin, look, your video's got over 200,000 views." I took the phone. On screen played that Saturday moment. The black SUV at my gate, me standing behind the iron bars, calm, flanked by 2 officers, and Caleb shouting, "Dad, open the damn gate!" Only a few seconds long, but someone had added the caption, "67-year-old man defends his home from greedy in-laws." The comments exploded. "He did the right thing! We need more people like Calvin. That gate should be made of gold." And of course the mockery too. "He's old. Why live alone? Let the kids move in." I didn't respond. I never joined the noise. But for Caleb, the internet was a weapon, and he wasn't one to lose. 2 days later, a new TikTok appeared. Vanessa Caldwell, Caleb's wife, sitting in a bright living room, voice trembling on the edge of tears. "This is a misunderstanding. We just wanted to help my father-in-law so he wouldn't be lonely. The internet got it wrong." Her tone was syrup sweet, one hand over her chest, eyes glistening. But the internet isn't stupid. Within 2 hours, people dug up her old Facebook videos, showing her bragging about cars, handbags, and one captioned, "Mom and Dad are finally getting their new home in Austin." The comments flooded in. "Misunderstanding? You mean stealing. Your fake cry needs acting lessons." A local news site even ran a headline, "From garage to viral, a retired mechanic teaches the new generation about boundaries." I read it, half amused, half bitter. I hadn't set out to teach anyone anything. I just wanted quiet. But the internet doesn't understand quiet. Wednesday morning, Helen Bishop called. Her voice was rough but steady, like an old oil engine humming smoothly. "Calvin, I just got word. Caleb filed a claim with the Travis County Court. They're trying to sue you under a filial support clause, saying children must provide for their parents." I froze. "Support obligation? That's backward." Helen chuckled dryly. "I know, but relax. Texas doesn't enforce that unless you've signed a financial guarantee. You haven't signed anything, have you?" "Never." "Good. They want an emotional war. We'll answer with paperwork." Her tone dropped low, each word striking like a hammer on metal. "They want war? We'll use paper." I sat in silence for a long moment. That sentence sounded exactly like an engine revving to life. Steady, deliberate, and precise. That afternoon, I bought a dual dash cam system, the kind truckers use. One went in my car, the other mounted high in the garage, pointed straight at the door. I no longer trusted words, only evidence. From that day, every call, every car stopping outside the gate, I recorded. For every threat, I logged time, date, and file number. My garage now looked like a lab for mechanical justice. Old tools on one side, a red recording light blinking on the other, and in between a man who'd spent a lifetime listening for the pitch of metal right before an engine blew. 3 quiet days passed. I almost believed things were cooling down, until 1 a.m. Sunday. My phone buzzed. Not a call, a voicemail. I pressed play. Caleb's voice rasped out, heavy and slurred, the kind of tone soaked in liquor and hate. "You think you've won, old man? You cost me my deal, my job, my reputation. But I swear, you'll regret humiliating me in front of this whole damn city. I'll make you beg." I sat there, staring at the dark screen. Outside, wind scraped across the metal roof, long and low like the breath of an engine about to overheat. I walked into the garage, flicked on the light, and looked up at the pressure gauge. The needle had hit the red, no more trembling. I murmured, voice rough as burnt oil, "When an engine stops shaking, it's about to explode." A Monday morning in early June. Rain drizzled over Austin, thin, steady, the kind that sounds like an idle engine running. I walked into the Travis County Courthouse, a brown file in hand. Inside it, a USB with the voicemail recording and a certified copy of the no trespass notice. There was no sense of victory. I only wanted closure. The courtroom was small, low-ceilinged, with wooden benches creaking under the weight of time. Across the aisle sat Caleb and Vanessa, faces pale and worn, eyes ringed in exhaustion, but still holding on to a thread of arrogance. Beside them, a man I didn't know, a budget attorney in an oversized suit, clutching a file so thin it looked embarrassed to exist. Helen Bishop sat next to me. She opened her laptop, typed a few lines, and whispered, "Let them talk first. We have evidence. All they've got is a story." I nodded. The hearing began. Judge Angela Monroe, mid-50s, gravelly voiced, serious. Caleb's lawyer rose first, words tumbling in rehearsed sympathy. "Your Honor, my client, Mr. Caleb Caldwell, merely wishes to support his aging father-in-law. Yet Mr. Reeves rejected him, causing emotional distress to both the couple and Mr. Caldwell's elderly parents. We contend that Mr. Reeves has violated familial obligations under the Filial Support Act." "There is no such act in Texas," Helen cut in, her voice sharp as cut steel. The room stilled. She stood and slid a thick folder across the bench. "Your Honor, these are federal and state code excerpts, confirming that Texas imposes no reverse support duty. Furthermore, we have evidence of threats and harassment made by the plaintiff." She pivoted her laptop toward the judge. "This recording comes directly from Mr. Reeves's garage security system, installed after the threats began. The dashcam logs every incoming call and message automatically." She plugged in the USB and pressed play. Caleb's voice filled the room, rough, drunk, boiling with anger. "You think you've won, old man? You cost me my deal, my pride, everything. But I swear, you'll regret humiliating me in front of the whole city." The sound was cold, metallic, echoing like an engine misfiring in the dark. No one spoke. Only the faint tapping of rain on the skylight. Helen closed the file, calm as always. "Unaltered audio. Time-stamped 1:03 a.m., Sunday. Direct evidence of harassment and threat." Judge Monroe looked to Vanessa. Her face went colorless. Mascara trembled at the corners of her eyes. She dabbed at tears while Caleb sat rigid, fists white. The contrast was brutal. Fear beside fury. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Caldwell, do you confirm this is your voice?" Caleb's jaw clenched. I don't remember." "We do," Helen said quietly, but it landed like iron. Judge Monroe exhaled, shut the folder, and declared, "Petition denied. Based on the conduct and verbal threats presented, this constitutes harassment. Any repetition will result in a restraining order." The gavel fell. Thud. Caleb shot up, face crimson. "She's crying? I've lost everything? And he's the hero? Everyone's on his side." The judge looked up, voice cutting through the noise. "Sit down, or I'll have you cited for contempt." He didn't. He shouted, voice cracking, "He's not my father!" Vanessa grabbed his arm, sobbing, "Caleb, stop!" He tore free, slammed his fist against the wood panel, and stormed out. The door closed hard, like a hood slammed shut on an engine burning out. The press caught it all. By morning, the Austin Chronicle headline blazed, "67-year-old man wins case against son-in-law. No one has the right to command another man's home." The story spread. Social media called me the man with the steel gate. I felt no pride, only fatigue. Justice isn't joy. It's maintenance. In the courthouse restroom, Vanessa leaned against the sink, mascara bleeding down her cheeks. She clutched her phone, voice trembling through tears. "Mom, he ruined everything. The house, Caleb's job, our name, everything." On the other end, only silence. Then a soft sigh. Vanessa gripped the phone tighter, meeting her own reflection in the mirror, red-eyed, hollow, shaking. She whispered to herself, "If he wants a war, he'll get one." 2 months have passed since the hearing. Austin was in the thick of summer, clear skies, blazing sun, and everything seemed unusually quiet. There were no more threatening messages, no more strange cars stopping at the gate. Neighbors greeted me more often. A few even left thank you notes for teaching them how to say no at the right time. But I knew silence is always the stage before the engine starts again. I spent most of my time in the garage. That garage, once the place I built my career, was now the only place that made me feel calm. Among hundreds of old tools, I found a dusty steel frame, the chassis of a Chevy Impala, 1968, the car my wife and I drove to New Mexico on our very first honeymoon. She had been gone 10 years. The car had been left in storage, rusted, its electrics shot. I removed every bolt, rewired every section, replaced every spark plug, and sanded the paint back to silver. The sounds of hammers, wrenches, and the welding machine blended like the heartbeat of the past. Sometimes I whispered, "Martha, see, I still know how to bring back what people thought was broken." One sweltering afternoon, I was cleaning the car's glass when Helen called. Her voice was low and hoarse, but this time not calm. "Calvin, I found this in the company's old files." "What is it?" "The Reeves Auto Garage customer list. Over 500 lines of data, including phone numbers, addresses, and discount codes." I frowned. "I deleted all that when I sold the shop." Helen replied, "Yes, but Caleb didn't delete it. He sold that data to a marketing firm. And worse, he used the name former co-owner of Reeves Auto in the sales contract, though you never authorized it. That's an NDA breach and commercial fraud." I was silent. A long, even breath. Helen waited, expecting me to explode, but I only said softly, "I understand. What will you do?" "Nothing." I turned off the phone. Instead of reacting, I opened my laptop, accessed the secure email, downloaded the contract Helen had sent, and saved it with my notes. A new line appeared in the evidence log folder. Caldwell, data sale, NDA violation, PDF. I typed a short line underneath. Justice does not need noise. It only needs properly formatted records. 3 days later, I got an unexpected call. It was Vanessa. Her voice was light, weary but well-rehearsed. "Dad, I think we should meet. Caleb wants to make peace. We're having a family dinner this Friday at our place. Not to argue, just to talk. Please come." I listened to her speak, then was silent for a few seconds. There are silences so long you can hear the intent beneath each word. I answered slowly and evenly, "If this is a family dinner, I will bring exactly what a family member should bring. Truth." "Dad, don't misunderstand. This isn't—" "I will come," I cut in, voice calm. "Friday, 6 o'clock. Helen called back almost immediately. "They booked a table." "Calvin, I don't trust that dinner. He's setting a trap." I smiled, voice low and sure. "Let's see how their engine runs when pressure is applied." Helen sighed. "What will you bring?" I replied tersely, "A camera." That night I stood in the garage, looking at the Chevy Impala I had restored, shining like a mirror. I opened the trunk and installed a dual dash cam, one facing forward, one recording inside, both capturing audio simultaneously. When the little red light on the device blinked, I heard the faint click like a safety mechanism being armed. I stepped back and watched the car gleam under the yellow lights. In the reflection, I saw an old man with oil-stained hands, but his eyes were bright, like someone about to start a test of an engine. I whispered, voice low as an oath, "This time, I am not fixing an engine. I am fixing justice." Friday night. The Austin sky was clear, the sunset painting the riverside high-rises a deep metallic red. I drove my 1968 Chevy Impala, the car I had just restored, silver as a mirror of the past, toward Riverside Grill, private room on the second floor. On the passenger seat sat a small black box, the dual dash cam that had recorded everything from the garage, along with the video Helen had sent me that afternoon. The night before truth breaks open is always the quietest moment. The Caldwell's house glowed like an exhibition hall. Inside, dozens of guests in formal clothes raised glasses, laughing. At the far end stood bright lights, flowers, and a sign that read, "To New Beginnings, the Caldwell Dinner." I walked in. A few faces turned, curious, surprised. Vanessa came forward, forcing a smile, her hand trembling slightly. "Dad, I'm glad you came," she said softly. "Your party is beautiful. I replied calmly. Caleb appeared behind her, dressed in black, grinning, the smile of a man who thought he had just won another round. Dad, tonight is about starting over. Forget the past, we're family. I glanced around. A phone sat on a tripod, camera pointed at the dining table. They were live streaming. I nodded. Family, huh? Good. The room shimmered in golden light, scented with wine and expensive perfume. Around 20 guests filled the space, mostly Caleb's business partners, some of Vanessa's friends, and a few local media faces. On the wall hung a 75-inch TV showing a slideshow of their wedding and vacations, with the caption, "Thank you for trusting Caldwell Consulting." The restaurant's AV technician stood by the mixer, HDMI cable in hand, ready to play a thank you video. When I sat down, my eyes swept across the scene. Everything was built to glorify them and turn me into a silent spectator. I smiled faintly. In my jacket pocket was a USB drive and a USB-C to HDMI cable. When the technician cued the slideshow, I handed him the thank you USB and asked him to switch inputs. One button press and the signal went to the TV. The dinner began. The sounds of cutlery pouring wine and chatter meshed like turning gears. Caleb stood, glass raised, his voice clear for the live stream. To new beginnings, to reconciliation, to those who know how to forgive. Applause followed. Vanessa smiled weakly, her eyes meeting mine for a second before darting away. I lifted my glass, watching the dark red liquid reflect the light. A new beginning, huh? I said slowly. I brought a gift for that. I took a small square device from my pocket and set it on the table amid murmurs. Just a camera? I said. An old one? But sometimes old things show who's really new. Caleb frowned. Dad, what is that? I didn't answer. I pressed the button. A click echoed. The big TV behind the table lit up. Guests turned, smiling, thinking it was a tribute video. But the footage showed not the party. It was the old Reeves Auto Garage. In the video, Caleb was clearly visible in a gray shirt, hunched over a computer, copying customer data to a USB drive. The mic captured every sound, unmistakable. These lists are worth a fortune. Who needs ethics when you've got data? The room froze. Laughter died. Then came another clip, the voicemail I'd received at 1 a.m. You think you've won, old man? You cost me my deal, my reputation, everything. But I swear, you'll regret humiliating me in front of the whole city. No one spoke. Vanessa's face went pale, lips trembling. She jumped up, shouting, "Turn it off! Turn that off!" But the video kept playing. The final frame showed the data sale contract Helen had uncovered, with the red text, "Seller, Caleb Caldwell, co-owner of Reeves Auto." A middle-aged guest, one of Caleb's partners, whispered, "He lied to us all this time?" Another set his glass down. "I don't do business with data thieves." Chairs scraped. One by one, people stood and left. Vanessa broke down crying, throwing her phone to the floor. The live stream still running. Comments exploding. "Who's that old guy? A mechanic schooling a businessman?" God, the Caldwells just imploded live. Caleb froze. I looked at him, voice steady. A mechanic always knows. When pressure gets too high, the system blows itself apart. My words hung in the air. Only Vanessa's sobs and the pinging of her fallen phone remained. Caleb slammed his fist on the table. The glass shattered, wine splattering across the white cloth like an oil spill. He screamed, "You think you've won? This is my house. You're just an old grease monkey." I didn't respond. I stood, picked up the small dash cam, and slipped it into my pocket. In the corner, the streaming phone kept recording, capturing everything from the shattering glass to Caleb's distorted face under the lights. I turned toward the door and said quietly, loud enough for the camera to catch, "Justice doesn't need a big engine. It just needs the right ignition." The door closed behind me, leaving inside the sound of pride breaking, and thousands watching that collapse live. 3 days after the dinner, Austin gleamed under the morning sun, but online, A storm was building without thunder. The clip, Dinner of Truth, the mechanic who exposed his son-in-law, spread everywhere, over 3 million views in just 48 hours. People shared it, joked about it, remixed the sound of the breaking glass, and my line, "Justice doesn't need a big engine, it just needs the right ignition." The comments poured in. "This old man is a legend. A mechanic playing his cards better than a lawyer. Whoever filmed this, thank you. We need more slaps like this." My name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew. Caleb had become the symbol of arrogance brought down. Monday morning, I made coffee as usual, and I turned on the TV, tuned to the local news. The banner scrolled, "Auto Mechanic Outs Greedy Son-in-Law at Dinner," by Austin Chronicle. A reporter stood outside the Caldwell house, still dark behind her. According to internal sources, Caldwell Consulting lost all its contracts this week. The Texas Cybersecurity Bureau has opened an investigation into unauthorized customer data transfers. I watched the black swirl of coffee foam spin slowly in the cup, thick and quiet, like oil through a funnel. That afternoon, Helen Bishop called. "Good news," she said. "The FTC fined him $15,000 for data violations. Not huge, but enough to shut the company down." I chuckled softly. "Engine's off, huh?" Helen replied. "Not just off. It burned." 2 days later, Vanessa appeared on another broadcast, not for charity projects this time, but for losing more foundation funding. The reason? Ethical scandal and suspected misuse of personal data. I watched her on screen, standing before the cameras, pale, voice trembling. "It wasn't my fault," she said. "I didn't know anything." I believe that. But truth, once shown in the middle of a dinner table, never disappears, and the internet never forgets. That night, my phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa. Short, no emoji, no greeting. "He's gone, Dad. He left." I stared at the words, my heart as hollow as a garage after every tool has been packed away. Outside, the first rain of the season began to fall, tapping through the window frame, dripping onto the hood of the 1968 Impala, resting quietly in the dark. I brushed the dust off the metal and exhaled slowly. A mechanic always knows, after every explosion, only two things remain: what's broken and what can still be fixed. And maybe tonight, it was time to start with the second. 2 weeks later, the rain had stopped, and Austin's sky looked as if it had been polished with oil. I was wiping down the 1968 Chevy Impala when I heard knocking. 3 knocks, then silence. I opened the door. Vanessa stood there. No silk blouse, no makeup, no proud posture. Just a thin girl gripping her bag strap, eyes red as if she hadn't slept all night. "Dad," she hesitated, "I have nowhere else to go." I stayed quiet for a few seconds, then stepped aside. "Come in." The house was silent except for the ticking clock. Vanessa stood in the living room, glancing around, the place once bright with lights, now smelling only of wood and metal. "I didn't come to ask for money," she whispered. "I just came to apologize." I nodded lightly. Apology is a start, but after the start comes work. I led her to the garage. It was clean, orderly, and every tool hanging where it belonged. I pointed to the shelves. "If you really want to start over, begin here." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "You can stay in your mother's old room downstairs, but your real work won't be here." Vanessa looked puzzled. I continued. "I have a friend, Ray Henderson, who runs Northline Auto and Electric. He restores classic cars and trains apprentices. He needs someone in the office to handle orders, file receipts, and organize parts. It's not greasy work, but it requires patience and honesty. I called him this morning. If you're serious, go there Monday." Vanessa looked at me, her lips trembling. "You still think I can do it?" I answered slowly, my voice deep like an old engine's hum. "I don't believe in promises, Vanessa. I believe in what you do after them." 2 days later, I took her to Northline Garage. The place smelled of oil, paper, and coffee. Ray Henderson, a gray-haired man with grease on his hands and kindness in his eyes, came out to greet her. Calvin's girl, huh? Around here, we don't mind dirty hands. We just don't tolerate dirty lies. Vanessa nodded, pressing her lips. I understand, sir. She started by entering inventory, matching orders, and helping trainees record repair steps. At first, she was clumsy. Wrong codes, spilled cleaner, forgot to turn off the printer. But she didn't quit. She stayed late, asked questions, labeled parts, and learned to tell them apart by manufacturer marks. One afternoon, I dropped by. She was sitting amid piles of papers, hair messy, hands ink-stained, but her eyes were bright in a new way. You okay? I asked. So busy I forget to be tired, she said with a small smile. But at least it feels like I'm doing something real. I nodded. Wrenches don't fix trust. Time does. Vanessa looked up and whispered, You're right, Dad. I broke more than just a car. That night, while cleaning her mother's old room, Vanessa found a worn brown leather notebook. On the cover, in slanted handwriting, it read, Every fix has a lesson. She opened it. Inside were my old notes. Mr. Miller's car. Replace spark plugs. Check ground wire. My wife, remember to say thank you when she makes morning coffee. Vanessa turned the pages one by one until the last line. My daughter, if one day you understand, know this, I never hated you, not for a single second. A tear fell onto the paper, spreading like a small drop of oil, warm and real. 1 year later. Early spring in Austin, young oaks along Riverside were sprouting new leaves. I sat in the garage beside the 1968 Chevy Impala, listening to light rain tapping on the tin roof, turning the pages of freshly printed documents from Helen Bishop's law office. At the top of the page, a line stood out in blue ink. Reeves Auto Scholarship, Technical Mechanics Training Fund. Purpose, to support engineering students from working-class families in need. I signed my name. Helen smiled gently. You know, Calvin, she said, not everyone who seeks revenge ends it with a scholarship. I replied evenly, I wasn't seeking revenge. I just wanted what was broken, fixed the right way. She nodded, setting her coffee cup down, speaking slowly. Justice isn't revenge, it's maintenance, to keep what's right from rusting over time. 2 months earlier, Vanessa had signed all the papers, waiving any claim to property, confirming the house, the garage, and the Reeves Auto Fund as my legal ownership. She offered that herself. I only said one thing. I don't need anyone to return money. I just need you not to repeat mistakes. She nodded, didn't cry, just smiled faintly. Now Vanessa works as the office manager at Ray Henderson's Northline Auto, the same place where she started over. She's no longer afraid to get her hands dirty. She told me during our last visit, I understand now, Dad. Dirty hands aren't as scary as living a clean life that's empty. I stayed silent, just patted her shoulder, the same gesture I once gave apprentices when they first learned to tighten a bolt the right way. My 2 grandchildren, Eli, 8, and Grace, 10, now live with their mother. I've established a separate Reeves Family Education Fund, a small education trust in an independent account, transferring tuition each quarter directly to their school, not through Vanessa. Only the school can withdraw, ensuring their future can never again be used as leverage. Each month, I receive hand-drawn cards from the kids. Once, Eli drew me standing beside a car, wrench in hand, and scribbled underneath, Grandpa fixes cars. Grandpa also fixes hearts. I keep that card in my wallet, next to the photo of my late wife, the woman who believed that kindness, if cared for like an engine with regular oil changes, never truly dies. One afternoon in March, while I was changing an air filter for a customer, Helen stopped by. She handed me a brown envelope, saying softly, This came in this morning. I wiped my hands, carefully opened the flap. The uneven handwriting on the front made me pause. From Caleb Caldwell. Request to meet in person. One time only. I stared at the envelope for a long while, then folded it shut and placed it on the workbench beside a worn wrench. Outside, sunlight cut through the dust, landing on the old sign I carved years ago hanging above the garage. Engines can be rebuilt, but not everyone deserves a second start. I sat down, listening to the wind whistle through the doorframe, the sound of something unfinished, yet no longer needing a loud explosion to prove it exists. 2 years later, Austin had changed a lot. The street where Reeves Auto once stood now carried a new sign: Reeves Technical Learning Center. What used to be a small repair shop where I patched tires and changed oil had become a free training center for young people passionate about mechanics, funded by the scholarship Helen and I had established. Inside, the sounds of drills, clinking wrenches, and laughter blended. Young hands were learning to fix small parts, just like I had 40 years ago. On the wall, a bronze plaque glowed under the lights, dedicated to those who fix what others abandon. Vanessa was now the executive director of the foundation, dressed simply in a collared shirt, hair tied back, hands lightly stained with grease, but eyes calm and steady. She walked through each workshop asking students about safety, tools, and technique. She was no longer the woman who feared dirt, but someone who understood the worth of honest work. I often just stood at a distance, letting her handle things, make mistakes, and learn, because that's the only real way to grow. As for Caleb, I'd heard he was in Oklahoma, working as a mechanic in a small garage outside Tulsa. No company, no business cards, just the same hands that once typed on keyboards, now tightening bolts and changing spark plugs. Helen told me he refused to meet me, but had sent a thank you letter to the foundation. I only smiled. Not everyone stays broken forever. Some people just need a loud explosion to wake up. One weekend afternoon, I sat on the bench outside the new garage. Sunlight slanted through the windows, and the dust shimmered like tiny stars. Eli, my grandson, now 10, was struggling with an old bicycle. "Grandpa, why does the wheel keep wobbling?" I walked over, knelt beside him, and held his hand. "You're tightening the wrong way. Clockwise, gently, don't force it." He tried again, and the wheel spun smoothly, humming softly. "See?" I smiled. Sometimes all you need is the right direction. I sat back, watching the golden light, the sound of bikes, the laughter of children. The faint smell of oil in the air made me feel a strange peace. I spoke softly, to myself, to the years behind me. I've fixed engines for 40 years. Some run forever. Some never start again. Families are the same. But as long as I keep my tools clean, I can always make something work. Outside, the wind rustled through the oaks. A truck rumbled past, its deep engine sound carrying the rhythm of life, steady, smooth, and no longer clogged with resentment. I've always believed life is like a machine. It won't always run perfectly, but if you maintain it in time, it will never die on the road. I had lost my garage, my faith, and nearly my family. Yet in silence, I finally heard the real voice of justice, the slow, steady ignition of something that doesn't need noise to prove it's alive. Now, every morning, when I open the doors of the Reeves Technical Learning Center, the smell of oil and the sound of wrenches make my heart warm. There is no more hate, only the belief that everything broken can be repaired, if someone's willing to begin again. If you've ever been dismissed by your own family, pushed out of the home you built with your hands, remember, justice doesn't need to shout to be heard. It only needs one person patient enough to keep their tools clean and wait for the right moment to tighten everything back in place. Leave a single dot in the comments if you've ever had to fix something, whether it was a machine, trust, or yourself. And hit subscribe, because each week I'll tell you another story where justice doesn't roar like an engine. It just hums softly enough for the whole world to hear.